Real Talk with Tina and Ann. I am Ann. Today we're joined by Tom LaGrave, a former Navy SEAL turned licensed clinical social worker with over 35 years of experience in biological, psychological, and social assessment. After overcoming personal struggles and completing a recovery program, Thomas dedicated his life to helping others in the social work profession. He helped many populations, but his experience with adolescents led him to his personal mission as he helps and advocates for youth transitioning to adulthood. He is the author of Special Welfare, Social Warfare, a powerful book addressing the fear and anxiety gripping our nation. In it, Thomas speaks to young people, offering a program to inspire resilience and hope during challenging times. I am so glad to explore your incredible journey and vision for empowering the next generation. This is very interesting to me, having worked in the helping profession as well and having degrees in the field. I very much appreciate what you are doing.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you on. But first of all, let's talk more about your title because that was different for me. Why special welfare, social warfare?
The story is about today, what's going on in the country. And as I see it as a social worker that I've spent the last several decades looking at, as I said, special welfare, if we do not create a rebalancing of the dynamic of those that have and have not, we're going to run into a situation where it'll be inevitable that it's going to end up in social warfare. So that is the use of
Okay.
those words, and that's the premise of the book.
Now, your resume is very impressive, by the way. Military and family life counselor you were embedded
Yes.
in the Special Operations Command working alongside Navy SEALs, Army
Yep.
Rangers, and other elite forces. You
Yep.
had so many chapters in your life, is what I like to say. What a purposeful road you have traveled. What lessons did you learn along the way that brought you to writing this much needed book and wanting to create this program, Honor Bound Society, to help today's youth transition into adulthood?
You know what? It's what I learned from my military career is that you never quit, you never give up.
Yeah.
The origin of basic underwater demolition SEAL training is a program where you're being challenged to the umpteenth degree, and the easiest thing that you can do in training is quit. The opportunity
Mm,
is in the form of a bell, and if at any time, at any moment, you wish to quit, you go up to that bell, you ring it, you take a helmet that you wear everywhere, put it down on the ground, and you're gone.
mm,
And it was that I took from that
wow.
moment to where I sit today in understanding life is challenging, life is difficult, but you do not give up, you do not quit, you you persevere.
I've always taken life that way. I have been hit over the head, knocked down, laid on the ground, not feeling like I can't get up. And I just never saw that option. I figured it out every single time.
Yeah, that the thing with it is if you do not have that internal nexus, or you were not raised in an environment that was supported, it's a really difficult thing to have missing in a tool belt that in life
Mm,
is going to
mm,
challenge us at every turn. So
yeah.
that component is critical to my work with youth and actually anybody that I interact with from my private practice.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how it has driven you forward in your life and in your work.
My military career started magnificently and ended horribly. At
Mm,
9 years after my completion, ended up being discharged for drug use.
mm,
And it was at a time where I was discharged and sent out into the civilian world that I had never experienced because I entered the military at 19. And
mm,
I was lost, confused, and incredibly addicted to alcohol and drugs, and did not know where I
mm,
was going to find a way to survive.
mhm,
And what I came down to was you always go home. I went home. My parents said, you know what? you can't come here unless you're going to address your issue with drugs and alcohol. So I entered into a recovery facility, and life started anew. And it was, again, a life-changing experience where instead of not giving up, not quitting, I had to learn how to reverse it and say that I can no longer use drugs or alcohol. I have to quit using them. So I had that insight, and I just reversed the polarity of understanding.
You spent your life switching gears all the time.
Yeah.
You had many pivot times in your life. And at 40, you got your degree. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you were close to 50, I think, or around 50 when you got your social work license and you went for the master's degree and everything. I mean, you went a completely different direction. And I think that that's really an important lesson for many of us because we think that this is the way we're supposed to go, and God or who you call a power greater than yourself. Sometimes it's just they're leading us in a different direction, and we have to be willing to go that route.
It's called My Will and the Will of a Power Greater Than Myself. And
Right.
which are you going to follow?
It might not go well if you just keep saying, no, I'm going my way.
Yes. All of it came about because of my inability to understand how to live life. I did a 90-day recovery facility, and that broke the physical addiction, but I didn't know how to
Sure,
live life. And what
sure.
it came up with is I needed to put myself in the environment where I could see what was in my youth that I no longer could see or feel to better understand. So I started working with youth. I took a job at an adolescent recovery facility, and I followed up with a Boys and Girls Club. And because of what those young people did for me at that time, I committed myself to giving back to that generation, not that those individuals, but that generation of youth that made life for me livable again. So that was the origin of how that all came about. And I found that I had a talent. Kids responded to me and they shared things with me. And the reason that I went to get the education was I did not want to have a youth ask me a question that I didn't have an answer or didn't know how to find the answer. So I went and bachelor's, master's, license, and board certification, all because I don't want to not have an answer for an individual that comes to me in a moment of crisis.
And I think that that's really an amazing trait for you to be that open. And if I can say this, when I was getting ready to do this podcast with you, I really felt like I was going to come across this really tough character that was like, hey, and be intimidating in a way. But you are so soft-spoken and you have the kind of spirit that is very attractive to, I would say, youth. For them to be, you would be very welcoming to talk to. Whereas, I watch a show called Special Forces sometimes. I don't know if you've seen that show where they're in your face to get you to change, and you don't seem that way at all.
You know what? That goes back to the job that I did within Special Forces. I was a hospital corpsman. So there was a medical aspect that's what my job was within the context. And from that perspective, you
Huh.
cannot come across harshly, especially when somebody is wounded and on the ground, and you are what makes the difference between life and death. I'm here to look at and bring the tools and talents that I have to offer in a moment of crisis that others are experiencing. So, yeah, that it, to come across as bold and in your face, I have that capacity. I can do that, but I prefer this. That you know what? There's a humility to it. I was a Navy SEAL who ended up destroying his career and then was able to put life back together again, looking at from the physical and understanding that the change came from understanding emotion and spirituality. And that was a very difficult task for me. But in the end, it was my humility of saying, I don't know, help me, that actually made the difference of how my life now is.
That's so I've been in treatment myself.
Yeah,
And it's that humbling piece, that brokenness piece, that being willing to lay it all out on the table and say, I need help, and not think that you know all the answers. I used to be in the jails where I was one of the chaplains with the women. The women that were really willing to change and put it all out there were the ones that were crying and willing to be broken and willing to be as honest as possible. And you even talk about that, and we'll get to that more later, but you talk about how important it is to be truthful. And that is one of the biggest ways to move forward.
absolutely. The humility of truth. I, I don't have all the answers, and I came to find in the spiritual domain, if you bring in negative, the world's going to bring back to you that same negative.
Sure.
And so the saying is that a lie changes all the time, and the truth never does. And I
Ooh,
don't have to figure out what I said if I spoke the truth.
right. It takes a lot less energy to be able to just tell the truth from the very beginning.
There
And
you go.
honestly, you can't have true relationships with people on lies.
Especially with kids. Kid catches you in a lie, you're done.
Now, where was the turning point in your life where you said, you know what, from being the person that's in recovery to being the person who wants to help others and help, help change people's lives, especially the adolescents that have helped change you?
Yeah. See, the thing with it is, my military career required shutting down of emotion because
Mm-hmm.
you're required to do a job, and that is in war to take life. And to be able to
Mm-hmm.
pull a trigger and take the life of another human being, you have to, the military is really good at tamping down that so that you do not hesitate. And the issue with recovery and living life in a society, it requires you to um, feel. And from a male perspective, the last thing I want to do is I don't want to feel. Emotions are something that I prefer not experiencing. Cold and calculating works for me. But if you're going to enter into the world and you find yourself an addict alcoholic, you're going to have to get in touch with those emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
my inability to do that, and in recovery saying that you have to go back to your youth, that the problems that you see that you make choices by began
Mm-hmm.
in your youth. And so not being able to feel, not being able to remember, put me into an environment that I was going to use again because I couldn't figure it out. So again, I decided to put myself in the environment of youth that were experiencing what I experienced at that age
Mm-hmm.
that I could not
Yeah.
remember. And so adolescent recovery was 13 to 17. And I saw these kids be so powerful in their ability to get real, to share the damage, to express and be vulnerable. I'm working there as an overnight counselor. I'm watching, and in recovery, I am not doing what I'm watching these kids do, and I'm feeling ashamed, and I'm feeling like a fake because I'm watching kids come to
Oh,
terms with it, and I can't do that. And so
right.
that grace that
Mm,
they gave me made all the difference in how I see life. I am taken care of. My intelligence, my ability to work, to put a roof over my head, all those things I have the ability to do. But
mm-hmm.
what else is it that I have that I can share? Because in sharing it, it comes back in dividends. I don't look to have you tell me how great I was because I helped you. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to know that. I want to do what I do and then move on and leave you to see that you had that talent and ability in you, and all that I did was help you see it within yourself. So that's answering the question in a long way around as to why I went working with youth, and then what I got from them, and then what I have decided to have my life mean in giving back. That's the circle there.
One of the best things I was ever told when I was living in my self-destructive behaviors was to get outside of myself and help others. And And I can tell you that was the best advice I've ever received because it worked. And I went into the helping profession, and my behaviors that I was in the middle of, they gradually just went away because I was surrounding myself more and more with the positive, and my purpose was different, my outlook was different, and I just wanted to help other people that were getting ready or were in the same life that I had been in. And I wanted to keep them from making the same mistakes that I had done. It's a scary world out there. And
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
that we can always use the things that we have been through in order to help other people. And I think that is our purpose.
It again is a choice, and it was a choice that I didn't have any trouble making.
That's
Everything you
awesome.
just explained, ditto. I see as you said. So that is really the driving factor, is to help another human being in distress does something for both human beings. They get something and I get
Yes.
something. And regardless of how I'm treated, I'm still going to treat you with dignity, because all that
Amen.
I know is if I match you, then I'm no better than you. If I
Exactly.
offer you a counter of what you are, it's going to hopefully give you pause to think about it. And for me, it comes back in having a good day. As simple as that.
It changes the whole dynamics of the relationship too, because I think that people, I have a friend of mine that a lot of the people are not treating her very well. And we've talked about how to handle that. And I think lots of times when people do that, that they're just waiting for this fight. But if you come back to them with kindness, it kind of like throws them off, and it's just like, wait a second, I was waiting for you to be mean back.
Yes. And that's the part that gives pause, because I am not going to respond to you in kind. And it took a long time to be able
Yeah,
to get that. Again, we go back to those emotions. As a male, I don't want to I have come to understand that they are a saving grace, because if I go to anger and resentment, I end up um, in a place that I could do more harm to myself, let alone an
sure,
individual.
sure.
So I continually over and over the years embrace the emotions to today, where they are not as difficult as they once were. They're still a pain, but life as I know it is what it is because of my choice to pursue what it is that emotions represent and how they are there to serve us. And that was a lesson of a lifetime.
You you have a way about you that I really think that you can reach a lot of young people. You've lived it,
Yes.
and you're also willing to listen to them and meet them where they are, which I think is extremely important. And I always say that. We say that all the time on the podcast, that we need to meet people where they are, because you can't help them grow if you don't do that. We all had a difficult time transitioning from adolescence to adulthood. I too found myself in a world that was much bigger than myself, and it got me in a lot of trouble. I always say that I'm blessed to be alive. But with you, it brought you into the helping profession, as we're talking about, as I did as well. And I commend you for transforming your pain into healing and using it to make a positive impact on others. Tell us more about this 365-day live-in program designed to push participants to their limits while guiding them toward self-discovery and purpose.
This is Honor Bound Academy. This is the nonprofit that I created. Over the years of working with youth, I came to understand the component that was missing. I wrote in the book Adolescent to Adulthood, a guidebook, and I told the
Hmm.
story of my adolescence to adulthood. And
Yeah.
I've been working with youth now for the past 35 years. I have seen three
Hmm.
generations transition from adolescence to adulthood, and I'm seeing things that I had in my youth that are no longer here.
Oh,
And
sure.
so what it came down to is Honor Bound Academy is a rite of passage, and that is ancient. We all have had those in place through the eons, through the millennia. It's how when we were hunter gatherers, you took youth at that time were taken from their mother, if and this is male, and
Oh.
then they were put with the elders, and the elders didn't tell them what they wanted them to do. The elders showed
Mm,
them through action what was required of them. And
mm,
it's that rite of passage that I'm not seeing today, having an opportunity for our youth to be challenged, to see
mm-hmm,
that it's not easy, to understand that um, you are responsible for your own self. An excuse as to
mm,
why you did a thing is an excuse. And
mm-hmm,
Honor Bound Academy teaches to be honorable men, not only with your peers, but with your family and with anyone that you come across. You're taught the reason why you should be honorable. And in a year, there's a curriculum, there's phases, there's nature, there's one component that is missing more than any, and that is failure. The opportunity to learn from your failures. Right
mm,
now, you look at my resume, all those successes,
mm,
that's meaningless to me. What
yeah,
means something to me is the negative things that I had to overcome to create that.
mm,
I am a product of my failures, not my success. So
yes.
giving a youth that, and in that
Oh,
year, you create the scenarios where they're put into a situation and they're going to fail because I'm going to make sure they're going to fail. And it's not because I want them to, I'm getting off on their failure. I need them to see in failing how you overcome that, how you pick yourself back up, how you move on, how you understand that
mm,
failure is a right that you have, and understand that anybody that you're looking at, every human being fails. So it's okay when you do it. And that
yeah.
educational component is is the underlying uh, critical piece, is to show them from failure how to be successful.
That is so beautiful. You probably couldn't tell, but I actually even teared up when you said that because it hit me right where I have lived.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how many lessons I have learned along the way from my failures. And, it's successes are they're a moment. They're like a blip. They're like, yay, I won, and then you move on. And it's like not even that big of a deal compared to having to work through things. And uh it's the journey, the struggle, the getting over those hurdles. It's and I don't like things handed to me either. I want to be able to earn it.
Exactly.
And that's what you're talking about. It's not that, you win a prize because you're breathing. Yay. You're doing great. Everybody wins. And that's not the way it should be.
Thank you.
Everybody needs to earn it.
Yes. And it's not enough. Now, from birth, especially the first couple of years, a baby is not talking, doesn't understand that, but a
Yeah.
baby is watching and they are seeing. And if you think that those years don't matter, if something goes wrong in those years, you're going to spend a lifetime in distress. That's why childhood is so important at the
Yeah.
very beginning. And I would offer too, when your kids go from adolescence to, or they go from preteen to teen and adolescence, that huge thing right there is the kids that I've worked with, all, they don't want me to tell them. They're watching me to have them show them. They
Mhm.
watch, and
Yes.
if you
Yes.
think you can say until you're blue in the face, do this,
Yes.
do that. They're watching you, because when you say do this, do that, you're not
Mm,
doing this and doing that. Then the kids
mm,
know, and that was the household I grew up in. My father was do as I say, not as I do.
yeah.
And that contradiction was, what? Why should I have to do that when you don't? And there's your conflict built in.
Yeah. And our generation, we definitely grew up like that.
Yep.
We were the quiet ones in the room. The kids had to do what their parents told them to do. We had to, cater to our parents,
Yep.
and they really could do whatever, you know. I mean, I also grew up in a house where there was a lot of dysfunction, a lot. And I was adopted as well. So, you want to talk about those critical years where
Yes.
in the very beginning, I was this baby in the foster system. And then, there is so much that happens to a person when in their very young ages. And I have three of my grandkids that I've adopted, and all three of them went through so much trauma very young. It is just critical that we help these kids and give them this tough love. And that's what you're talking about. I mean, it's a tough love and really believing in them, but at the same time expecting them to be better.
Yes. And that's just it. And you do that by showing them what that means.
Yes.
It's in your behaviors and your actions. And so it is, again, the reason I went with the age group 18, 19, and 20. At
Yeah,
17, parents are involved, and that just doesn't work. I can't have parents telling me, which they have every right to, what I should do with their kids. At 18, you can tell me, I'll listen, I'll be
that's
respectful,
perfect.
but I'm not going to do what you say. And then 21,
Mm-mm.
you've begun your process. So I had to start somewhere, and I picked 18, 19, and 20 because of the education that I have, because of the experiences from the education I have. I can pretty much see how I can use a 1 year program to address issues that were contrary in your youth. I recognize when there was abuse. I recognize all those things, and I understand how to adapt and give you
Mm.
ways to adapt and overcome. So that is the ideal age, 18, 19, and 20. And it's because I have full ability to understand what I'm looking at and to counter, regardless of what your baggage you're bringing. And
Mm-hmm.
there's always hope. And that program, if
100%.
nothing else, leaves you feeling being part of something that was unique, a binding of a group of individuals that will be friends for a lifetime. And your internal was tested day in, day out for 365 days, and you can now trust your instincts. They're there.
Yes, that is amazing. You know, to be able to reach the youth today and to be able to change their path in life by example, by leading
Yes.
by example is really, it's just a great concept. You talk about the walls that we build and the
Yeah.
barriers that often prevent us from reaching our goals, which I have done many times in the past. But in your program, Honor Bound Academy, you emphasize the power of choice and personal responsibility in overcoming these barriers. You say choice is an absolute. How do you help young people break through and make meaningful choices and put that into action?
The simple answer is that accountability. There is
Okay.
accountability for every one of your actions. And remember, for my bud's career, I was in class 106. I graduated in 1980, February 29th. And the transition through first phase, second phase, third phase, uh, in first phase, the instructors were your enemy. In second phase, they
Um,
were teaching you because this was dive phase and you had to listen and understand that your life, dive phase was underwater. And then third phase was land warfare. And the progression of student and instructor, it changed as you progressed. And you were never their friends, but you saw that once you graduated and you became a SEAL and you went to a command of SEAL teams, that you all were bound by an experience and saw that it taught you how to overcome and that you didn't quit. And it comes down to that in understanding how to implement that into my program, where at the beginning, I'm not their friends. And at the end, I'm not their friends. When they go out and become adults and they've begun their life and they find themselves in difficulties, they get to come back and the relationship is different. I'm no longer the director of the
Mm,
program. I'm Tom. I'm the one. Tell me what's going on. Let's figure it out. And
mhm,
so when you go in a 1 year program, I have the ability to do so many things because I watched what was done to me through a program that is called Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, and the all the ways in which the nuances have to occur so that trust is built in the end, and you see that if you do something wrong, you should be disappointing yourself, but you will
mm,
know from a year that you're disappointing the staff because we're giving you everything that we have. We want you to succeed. And if you're giving it half measures, that availed to nothing. And there will be feelings of that. I don't do guilt, but I hold you accountable, and I'm not going to say it's okay until you prove otherwise. And
mhm.
again, 365 days is a long time and a lot of stuff you get to do, and especially when you know what you're doing. So you're here.
That's amazing. I think that there's a lot of lack of accountability these days, and a lot of sweeping under the rug and it's okay, baby, and catering to kids. There is so much going on in the world these
Oh,
days.
yeah.
COVID-19, social media, changing societal norms that is going on. What do you see as the biggest challenges that these youth face, and how does your program address these challenges besides accountability? I mean, what else can you do in that program to meet? I mean, I've got three kids that are COVID kids, you
Yeah.
know, and the social media is almost impossible. So what are the things that you do in your program? Do you like strip their phones? Do you like strip their social media? Do you like, what do you do?
It's here. There's nothing you can do. So let's use it in a
Yeah.
beneficial way. Anything and everything that comes out of my mouth is researched. So this thing that comes to you in the form of that, this is a wonderful tool to be at your disposal to have somebody say something and you can find out if it's the truth in a very short period of time.
Mm.
So to answer the question is, I'm not going to take it away. That's a
Oh,
losing battle.
okay.
What I'm going to do is show you how to use it in a productive way, and it also can aid. You can go on to Siri and tell this thing what you want it to do, but languages, to understand an individual, you understand their culture. To understand a culture, you have to understand the language. And
Mm,
this is a tool that I've used that I can speak into it in English and it'll come out in Spanish or it'll come out in Russian. It allows you to be there to aid others. Remember, are you a taker or are you a giver? These are things that need to be taught. Again, in a program, all of that's addressed while you get to keep your phone.
how do you teach them to be givers?
You put it into a scenario that the way a SEAL is created, we're not individuals, we're teams. And
Okay.
there are platoons, that's 14 people. Now, Rangers are different, as Green Beret are different. All of the special forces are different in their accumulation. But you take groups of 3, 5, 7, 14, 25, and you mold them together. And
Hmm.
you see that in my operational years in the real world, I am not going to let my fellow brother SEAL die. I'm going to catch the bullet. And
Okay.
everybody feels the same way. So we're literally knocking each other out of the way to catch the bullet because I don't have to go home. You do. That was instilled in me from that military career that, you know what, the team comes first. And how do I implement that? It's a bonding. There are uh,
Mhm.
rites of passage in there. There are various phases that instill how you come to understand your place in the world, your place with your fellow friends,
Mhm.
family, and the world at large, what you owe it.
So you create a brotherhood in a sense
Yes.
where, you have to work together, and it's not Well, I mean, the cliche or whatever you want, there's not an I in team. I
Yeah.
mean, where you have to work together and come out stronger.
Because here's the thing is family. Is not family
Okay.
the alpha and the omega? I ran a boys and girls club. I was the big brother. I wasn't the father. They got fathers. They got
Mm-hmm.
mothers. So I'm looking at I'm creating in that 4 year period. Took I took over um, Paradise Valley, South San Francisco Boys and Girls Club. I had 59 youth. 4 years later, I had 440
That's amazing.
because it was a place to come that you were treated like family. And I'm going to expect you to act like a family member
Okay.
and hold you accountable. And so I learned that that is doable. When kids know that you're authentic, that your word is your bond, they respond. And so it's not rocket science. The whole thing is I'm creating brother, sister, family relationships that you'll have for a lifetime.
So it's showing people how to react and respond within a family. I mean, there's going to be dysfunction, and so that's where
There
there's
can't be
growth.
not be.
And so, I mean, that's where you learn how to get through those dysfunctional times and how to come out on the other end closer.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we live in a world of dysfunction. There's no doubt about it. And there's so much division right now. And it's being able to figure out how to come closer together with dysfunction.
Yeah. See now the book is introduced in because I'm telling a story and I'm looking at the generations. SWAT
Yes, you
is
do that.
strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. And I looked at each generation from
Mm,
the greatest generation to the silent generations to my generation, boomer, to XYZ. And in looking at that, there is the understanding that somebody's going to have to give. That bottom line. And as I'm sitting here at the end of my journey, I'm nearing the end of my work world. I, like so many, will have to work until it's all said and done because I didn't invest correctly. And there's so many others like that. But the thing with it is who's going to make the sacrifices for our youth? Right now, the country's has no idea what's coming, and it scares people and it angers people. And once it actually occurs, the nation is going to be really angry. And that second portion of class warfare, social warfare, if that occurs, then we have lost because the fact of the matter is everything that we need is here if there are those who are willing to sacrifice. So I looked at the greatest generation and what they could offer, the silent generation and what they could offer, the boomers in what we can offer. And I'm seeing these three end ones or these three oldest ones. We owe this generation. We have created a debt, and that's where I said the disparity in wealth is going to create civil war. And if we don't get a hold of that, and what it requires to get a hold of is sacrifice. The generations right now, no generation is making the sacrifice. Nobody wants to give it up. And we're going to leave a world of what to our youth? A world that is becoming a warming world, a world where there is now fires that rage and hurricanes, and who's going to stop and give? And
hmm
at this stage, that's me. I'm doing this. I wrote this book so that I can't guilt you and I'm not going to guilt you, but I know the dirty secrets of the greatest generation, the silent generation, and my generation. I know the lies we've lived by, and I'm just going to share those truths and let our kids know what we really are. And in doing so, in giving as I'm going to give, I hope others will see that there's a reason that we're doing it. We're not doing it to be nice people. We're doing it because our youth need us to do it.
Yeah, you do mention where it's a country that's on the verge of collapse.
Yep.
And it is very scary times. I mean, there's times where I just have to turn off the TV because I just feel so much division within
Yep.
our country. And there was somebody who said to me, and it was pretty powerful that, our governments, they lead us with anger and fear, and it needs to be led with information and empowerment. And those are very different things, and how we can even handle our youth.
Whoever shared that with you is incredibly insightful. So the fact of the matter is, a society to work requires a certain degree of fear. That fear brings human beings
Yeah,
together.
sure.
What we have today is fear run amok. And beyond all that we see, follow the money. You know what? That's a chapter. I shared that the money is incorrect, and that money being unbalanced is benefiting a very few. And those very few love every minute of this society that we're in because they have their walls created, they have their abilities to
Mm-hmm.
withstand. As long as we allow this fear to be percolated and not look at what's really going on and asking that question, what is this all about? Then we are condemned to be driven into war. As simple as that.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more transparency going on. And I know within
True.
my own household, if we can just, make it on a more micro level, where within my own household, fear and anger, there is, we used to be afraid of our parents. This
Yeah,
generation is not afraid of us. They're just not.
exactly.
It doesn't matter what you do. They're just not. So there is a healthy fear. There is nothing wrong with having a healthy fear, but there's too much
Yeah,
fear going on, and I can
it's
feel
overwhelming.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it really is. Now, you have a quote from Theodore Roosevelt that really resonated with me.
like that one. Yes, me too.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knows victory nor defeat. This is beautiful to me. How does this quote speak to you and your life and with the youth who you want to reach?
Yeah, it's as simple as that. The whole saying is, you know what? World, we're put into a world for a certain amount of time. Live life, live it to its fullest.
Yeah.
Make mistakes, do foolishness, go and um, be insane. These are all the things that
Mm,
right now
live.
everybody is pulling back at a time
Sure.
where we should move into this. The the issues with fear and anger, they are dangerous. But the fact of the matter is, it's a human being that is angry and fearful. And on the other side of the shoulder, the good angel, the bad angel,
Mm-hmm.
if you respond in kind, anger becomes more anger. But if you
Sure.
alter it and see that maybe the person's having a bad day and are you okay? And you know what? There's a safety factor. I don't want you to get shot, stabbed, or punched, but also take a step back and say, do we really need to go here? And
Mm-hmm.
that human being is in there. And
Mm-hmm.
I have faith in humanity that we will find just that, our humanity. And the book is sharing that these are where I think the problems are. This is the issues with our youth. This is my suggestion, what we could do with our youth. This is what I'm looking at that I'm willing to give. And
Mm-hmm.
these generations, each of you can do this too. What do you say?
I also like how it's like get in the ring,
Yes.
don't live outside of the ring.
No.
Get in the ring. If you fail, you fail. And that's fine. Like you said at the beginning of the show, it's your failures that you learn from more than your successes. And there is nothing wrong with being on that ground and figuring out how to get back up.
Exactly. All that it is that's just it. The getting up and brushing yourself off is
Yes.
what
Mm-hmm.
the lesson that we can share, you and I, as we're saying, and anybody listening, we've been on the ground. You got to know that we've been on the ground. You're looking at us now because we stood back up, and I'm saying I'm going to get knocked down again, but I also will get up again. So these words are powerful because of they're looking at us, understanding the truth. So
I do have a kind of a different question about this part of it because, I learned young as an adopted, abused kid that if I was going to make it in this world, I had to rely on myself. I had to figure it out. It was like I'm getting up. I'm autistic. I have other disabilities. And I was told I probably wouldn't graduate high school the traditional route. And I ended up getting a master's degree by teaching myself how to learn. Now, what I did was along the way from the very beginning, there was no option for me not to fight and keep getting up. That just was the way it was going to be. But I think that maybe there are some people, they have a lot of handouts. A lot of things are very easy for them. And it's very difficult for them to understand that, you can do this yourself. You don't have to have somebody help you up. You need to figure it out and how to get up on your own. So, I mean, for some of these youth that you might be coming across that have not really had to have that fight within themselves, how do you teach that? Can you teach it, or do you think that it's just something that's within us?
now that I do come across that. As a matter of fact, last night I had a session with an individual, and they are every time I offered a suggestion, I was given an excuse.
Ah,
And the thing with it
mm,
is I I don't get to, get you angry. I don't get to tell you what I'm thinking. I'm a clinician. I need to find a way to get through that and have you hear me. And it's challenging. There are going to be the youth today that there's just nothing I'm going to be able to do. There's nothing anybody's going to be able to do. They're just not going to figure it out. There are those that, I
mm,
will never give up on a kid, but I will also say, when you're ready to give me something other than an excuse, come back then.
I
Right
like
now,
that.
I need to leave you to go back out into the world to learn a few more lessons that what
Mm,
you're doing
mm,
is what is creating this problem. And for you to get a different result, you have to change. And those
mm.
suggestions, at some point, hopefully, the individual will learn. But to your point, no, I can't save the world.
Well, I always say to my own kids, if you want better, you have to do better. If you do bad, you get bad. If you do good, you get good. And that really is very true. I mean, if you said change, if you want different, you got to change. It's that simple. You also had another quote that I loved in your book from Joseph Campbell about
Ah,
following your bliss and the
yeah.
doors will open. And I wish that I would have learned this a lot younger. So I think that it's a really great gift that you're giving these young people to be able to know this.
Here's the thing is that uh, Joseph Campbell became a hero because he passed away in 89, 90, something like that. But he left a body of work in books, but in videos. Bill Maher did an interview with him, and he was amazing because look, the very essence of human is we're bound in myth. In myth, in ancient times where there were no religions, there were magical, mythical moments. And
Mm,
Joseph Campbell embodied that in a way that he said that term, when you have no answers for the individual, you will still always have one that you will offer in saying goodbye. And that is follow your bliss. What does that mean? Whatever it is in life that trips your trigger, that
mm,
sets you in desire, that
mm-hmm.
makes your blood boil, the hairs
Yeah.
on your back stand up. That's it. Follow that. Go after that. That's what will bring meaning to your life. And he
Mm-hmm.
said it. And as I've shared, there are those that I can't get to and I'm not going to be able to, that I leave with them in the end. Then, well, you know what? I want you to follow your bliss.
And we're not really great at everything, we aren't. And that's just the way it is. But if we follow what our passion is, the doors will open. But you have to be, I have a vision board and I like kind of like, I have it for me because I really do want to accomplish these things and I try really hard to manifest things. And but it also comes with a lot of hard work. It just isn't like I want this, I want this. Okay, it's just going to fall in my lap. It's an action.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm taking you back to your kids. Your kids are watching you, and
Yeah.
you're leaving them the greatest gift you can give them. Those words, the words are powerful. They can help heal wounds. Words words are amazing, but your actions
Mm,
in how you've lived your life that your kids are watching, you're setting an example in action, not in words. The words are important, don't get me wrong, but what is most important is what you do. And in your
mm-hmm.
case, what you've done, your kids, I don't doubt they love you.
Well, we have our moments. Um,
Oh, every family does.
yeah, yeah. But they're all free autistic and have a lot of disabilities and trauma and different things. And so what I do give them is I don't allow them to use those as excuses.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, there's no way. I'm like, I got here. You can do it too. So that's what we really try to instill in our family is trying to really think outside of the box and try to figure it out anyway. Now, talking about this, we all have different sets of tools.
Mhm.
And when I was in treatment, they tell you to change people, places, and things and get a new tool belt, basically. And so, you refer to that, having a different set of tools. So, could you talk more about your tools and what you will be using, those kinds of tools that you'll be using in the program?
There's several types of tool belts. My own personal ones are truth and never
Mm,
giving up, never giving in.
mm.
When I don't have an answer, asking for help. When I need therapy, I
Oh,
go to
yes.
therapy.
Yes.
And so
Mm,
for those that the stigma of therapy, I'm so sorry that you feel that way and see that way, because the tool that therapy offers me and that I offer in therapy are ways to see life, because every one of us has talents and abilities, but
hmm
I don't have all the talents and I don't have all the abilities. So when
hmm
that happens, I've learned that the emotions say you're not going to figure this one out, and then the requirement is to do something about it because I'm not going to quit. That means I got to go ask for help,
hmm
and that's my tool belt. And right
hmm
now, I learned as a clinician working with the military, that 7 year period as a military family life consultant. I saw my way of doing therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
CBT. It's ground, it's works, it's wonderful. But I'm
Yeah.
looking at service members coming back from war who have seen death and their PTSD is off the charts. And I saw a clinician do this thing called eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And I was like, wow, I want to do that. And the individual told me that if you need to be taught how to do it, you need to go to school for it. And the reason that is because if you do it wrong, you can do damage. So
Oh.
I have gone back to school and am now
Mm.
a certified eye movement desensitization reprocessing. But the other ones that are on the horizon are right now we have the ketamine, we have the MDMA, and we have the psilocybin. Now, as a clinician that is sanctioned by the Board of Sciences in the state of California, I can't go there. I can't do that because they're not legal, but they are becoming legal. And if they
Mm.
are in time brought to bear, those tools are incredible for males and females who are experiencing PTSD. And it's even enlightening beyond what you would have gone, what you will go and use it for. They're truly eye opening. So the belts, the tools, my personal ones are that I'm truthful, honest.
Hmm.
I am bound by that. The clinical CBT, EMDR, but these others are on the horizon. And when they come, they're going to make such a difference to women who've been raped, men who've been raped, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines. That is what I have most hopeful for because there are such uh, problems with the mental health of so many people in our society, but especially our former veterans. Suicide rate is there's 19 veterans that are going to kill themselves today. And between
The
13 and 23, nobody wants to know that suicidal statistic. So you know what?
okay, this
Because
is good.
society hides it because they don't want to look at it,
They're
and
suffering in silence.
they're suffering in silence. And if I have a affinity, I went in the military in 1979. That's 4 years after Vietnam, and everything that taught me, all the instructors, everything that went into creating my military career was Vietnam era veterans. And the Vietnam era veteran is still, they're survivors. You want somebody that will
Mm.
truly be awe inspiring. The Vietnam era veterans that have made it and still are alive, they are to be told, bravo Zulu, job well done. And so the majority of veterans are hurting in silence and deserve everything that they have given to us and our country. And the rare few are always going to be there and they matter too. But it's the numbers that right now of suicide are just staggering.
That is so absolutely sad and devastating to our country, and we need to do better. I don't know. Do you know what we could do as a country in order to be better in this situation?
Yeah, figure out where the money is and put it where it belongs. The
Because the
book,
veterans need more money.
no,
Their mental health.
everybody needs more money. The thing with the matter is the VA is doing everything in their power to be there for the veteran. And it's they are trying. They're noble and honorable in their attempt. The hardships that we're experiencing, if you were to rebalance the monetary equation, so many of the issues fall away. And
Mm.
in the book, I take it from A, B, C. I can't do it alone, but I understand what needs to be done. And I'm here sharing with you that in the book are offers of suggestions. And if nothing else, I'm here and I'm never going to give up. And I am advocating for youth at every turn. That's the end of my journey role is to advocate for young America. That's my purpose and meaning.
I hope that you are heard. We're at a critical time
Yes, we are.
in your program. I noticed that you have it divided into elements, fire, earth, air, and water. And I wanted to know the significance of these and how they guide participants through the journey of self-discovery.
they're all nature. And as a clinician, I'm very good at what I do. The
Uh,
greatest clinician I have ever met is nature itself. So for me, being a former Navy SEAL, the ocean, water is my domain. There, water speaks to me. Water is when I'm having the difficulties, I immerse myself in water because in that way, I find the gifts that nature provides. And
mm,
there are differences. You know what? Deserts, there are what else? Mountains, you know, all of these things, air. I haven't in years, but jumping out of an airplane at 10,000 feet is truly a spiritual event
ooh,
because there comes a point where you can choose. Do you want to pull the cord
okay.
or do you not?
Wow.
And that
Oh,
is a representation of the air, the water. Fire cleanses. So as the youth come to me, I learned from the Boys and Girls Club that no two kids are alike, but they're
mm,
all the same. And
mm,
where they're all the same is they want to believe in magic and they want to be challenged and they want the excitement and they want to be heard. And so funneling it
mm,
through
yeah.
natural environments is a way to bring a calm because you can teach survival in each of those. And they are everything that any human being needs. We always, if you ask somebody, what's your favorite environment to be in? What's your favorite natural environment? Everybody has an answer.
Hmm.
What's yours?
Well, I like the beach, but I also like the forest. I grew up with woods behind me, and one of my favorite things to do was climb the trees and be in the trees.
Uh,
It felt like
so,
I was one with nature.
oh, thank you. You just told what I'm trying to share. Thank you
Yeah,
for that one. You nailed it because that's exactly what it is. Nature rejuvenates.
it does.
And
Yeah.
so from my perspective, 6 years ago, I gave my TV away. I don't have a TV. I don't I need to be up on certain things, so I'm aware, but I don't watch TV. I go out, I live in a very natural environment with trees and um,
Mm,
it balances me. It's what I use. That we spoke of tool belts.
hmm.
That's one of my tools on the tool belt is nature. Um, Forests, when I am troubled, deserts, and when all other things, water.
Well, seasonal affective disorder is a real thing.
Yeah,
And in my neck of the woods, it's
depression.
very, very cold when there's nature and it's beauty and you can get back outside. That really helps depression. It
Yeah,
really helps lift the spirit and you become one with God. And it's an amazing thing because you know why? Well, partly is because nature is much bigger than us. And it's that connection with something that is much bigger than us and our problems.
yes, it is. So you see, as difficult as it is, as troubling as it is, as angry and dangerous as it is, there's still hope.
Yeah, there really is. Now, you talk about believing in yourself, trusting yourself, and forgiving yourself in your book. Would you
Big.
say that forgiveness, both for yourself and others, was a critical step in your own personal journey?
Yeah, I was able to forgive others and ask others for forgiveness. That's
Oh,
the beginning of recovery.
yeah.
And working with youth, seeing how they responded to me, I came to determine years into my sobriety that I had asked for forgiveness from everyone and I had forgiven everyone except for me. And the most profound thing that me as a human being can give myself is the forgiveness. I was discharged from SEAL Team One, and it destroyed me. It was my identity. It
Mm,
was I I had in my mind I had betrayed sacred trust,
mm,
and there was no going back, and there was no way to fix that
mm.
until I began my sobriety and I began working with youth. And by their actions, I saw the healing of forgiving and came to understand at some point that I'd done it all except for I got to forgive me. And in doing that, the
Mm.
circle came round.
Mhm.
Their life again right now is worth living. And because
Wow.
the youth that provided that
Oh,
was part of that, it is my gratitude in giving back for the rest of my life that comes from just what I shared.
that just shows how powerful forgiveness is.
Yeah.
It is so powerful. I mean, it's so much easier to wear the badge of shame
Oh yeah.
to wear the badge of forgiveness. Because, other people can look and say, well, you did this. And so it's hard to forgive ourselves sometimes, I think, because other people are reminding us also, or maybe, the consequences of what happened also remind us of what happened. But I think when I worked in the jails, I think one of the biggest things also there was the forgiveness. I mean, many of them had really created a pretty uh, difficult shadow behind them that there was a not a good rippling, and that's really hard to forgive yourself, but it's not productive, and it'll keep you from moving forward. So I think that one of the places that we all need to begin when we're going through some of these things is at a place of forgiveness for ourselves. I think that that's beautiful, no matter how hard it is. I mean, yeah, we've all done things that we could say, well, that's just, I'll never forgive myself for that. And I've actually said that to myself. And how productive is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank you, Tom, for being on. Can I ask, can you share with us how people can help you with this
Yeah.
program, how people can get a hold of you?
This is the book, Special Welfare, Social Warfare, Adolescence to Adulthood, a guidebook, a story of each generation's transition, what was and what is and what's missing, along with redistributing the wealth, otherwise social catastrophe. And I have a nonprofit that's called Honorbound Academy that you can reach at the honorboundacademy.org. Again, that's the honorboundacademy.org, where you can find all that we've talked about, the book, along with blogs and all the various, what is it, my social media platforms, where in one stop at the honorboundacademy.org, you can go into my entire life and purpose.
Well, it's amazing because you have completely dedicated your life to
Yes,
purpose. And
yes,
I think that that is so important. And, as we get older, I think that some people think, well, what's my purpose? I don't, and there is no ending until we take our last breath. And even then, some, hopefully, our shadow still continues in a positive way. But I mean, I really believe that we always have a purpose on this earth and that we are to use everything that we've gone through as stepping stools that have gotten us here that help us get, pass that on to other people so that they can help in their journey. So, because we are doing this journey together. So, thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us, Tom. Your work is inspiring to me, and I know it will be with our listeners. It's been a pleasure having you on Real Talk today.
you've been great. Thank you for all the opportunities you've offered. So, to everybody else, follow your bliss.